And we're live, folks. Hello, thanks for coming. It's very possible that we are going to have technical issues today. Hopefully, we have taken care of them and moved past them, but I'm definitely having some weird computer mojo happening. I'm also kind of out in the country here. I'm slaving off of my phone hotspot because there's basically non-existent internet connection. So if you guys in the chat could let me know if anything gets frozen or if there's any other weirdness anywhere. So with that said, thank you for coming. Great Empire of the Dawn, Dawnbringers, here we are. We're here to talk about, obviously, some of the Great Empire of the Dawn topics that I cracked open in the last video. We sort of beat a path up to the wall. We started in Old Town. We visited Starfall. We spent most of the episode talking about Dane and Hightower. But of course, all that is really just leading up to the idea of the Night's Watch and the War for the Dawn and all that stuff. So, okay, so I'm seeing the audio is good. The video is kind of lagging in and out. So as long as the audio is good, then we'll be good. So yeah, thanks for coming, guys. I see a couple of very generous super chats have preceded me. So let me give a hearty thanks to Mogerts Hoggerts. $50 super chat, no question attached. Thank you. And if you want to follow up with a question, I'll try to spot that. Ghoul City says, LML isn't here. Everyone talk about how this is all Bran's dream. That's hilarious. Thanks, Ghoul City. And then you've added another very generous $50.01, as if this was the Price is Right. Yes, you've topped the previous bid by 1 penny. You win the Showcase Showdown. It's 90 minutes of me talking about mythology and symbolism. Yay. Sorry, no RVs, no new cars. But yes. So thank you for coming. And yes, we got a nice Europe time. Like I was saying last time, I do try to mix up the times so that people can attend from different parts of the world. I do love that we are a global community and that fantasy fiction and magic swords and things like that appeals to everyone everywhere. That is tremendous. Alexander with the 420 super chat. Thank you very much. Doesn't matter the denomination. As long as it's 420, then we're on the right page. And guys, there might have been a super chat that came in before. My chat only goes back to about 12:04. So if you sent in a super chat before then, I will see it eventually. And thank you. And if you had a question that you wanted to attach and I missed, then attach it there. So there you go. Now, guys, most of the live streams that I've been doing about the Great Empire of the Dawn have been very scripted. Not scripted, but I've been working from an outline, like the Dracomorph thing. I basically had a script. This is going to be a pretty open Q&A, so you guys are providing the outline, essentially. If you've got, oh, hello to Libya. If you got any questions, about basically anything. I mean, we're calling it Great Empire of the Dawn, but if you want to ask about any of the Winds of Winter predictions or anything else, A Song of Ice and Fire, you can definitely throw it out. Yes, you can ask a question about the Pact, Amelia. Absolutely. Absolutely. And Alex B, thank you. I've been also loving your comments, which I've been seeing you. Alex B is always good for at least 3 paragraphs, which I appreciate. So thank you, Alex. And yeah, so I see Lauren's Corner, who's falling down a Lord of the Rings lore rabbit hole. Yes, I've got a little Nimloth action, the white tree. And of course, I gave a shout out to Blue Tiger in the video, but I'll give another shout out again. Blue Tiger, all you have to do is search for the Tolkienic Song of Ice and Fire, and you will see that Blue Tiger is all over the correlations between Lord of the Rings and A Song of Ice and Fire, of which there are many. Not only all the meteor swords and Aragorn stuff, but like there's a magic white tree. Yeah, very prominent magic white tree. So that might be important. It gets burned, and then that leads to the downfall of Numenor and all kinds of very bad things. So, all right, I see a super chat with a question here. And Lauren, I see your fireworms question. I'll grab that one too. Layla says, still confused on how Valyrian swords came to Westeros. I think ice is said to be 400 years old. Can you say more about your theory on ice and dawn? Yeah, so definitely that's an easy one to get confused. So I'll just go over that real quick. So basically, Valyrian steel seems to have started flowing into Westeros sometime around 500 years before the present storyline. That's around the time that the Valyrians established their outpost on Dragonstone. And before that, it seems that the Celtigars and Valyrians of House Valyrian of Driftmark have both occupied their islands. And so basically what we get is about 600 years, 500 years ago, the Valyrians establishing some outposts in the Narrow Sea. The Celtigars live on Claw Isle, the Valyrians live on Driftmark, and the Targaryens live on Dragonstone. And if you look at the map, they're all very close to one another. So there's basically these 3 islands right offshore of Westeros. And it seems that the Valyrians set up shop there initially and began, it's said that the purpose was for trade. And it also says that they ruled the Narrow Sea with the ships. The Valyrians did because they had the fleets. The Targaryens ruled from the sky with the dragons, and they basically had a chokehold on the Narrow Sea trade before the Doom happened, which was, of course, 400 years ago. And so it seems that essentially Ned's ice, Catelyn in the opening chapter, where and we're back. All right, so I told you there was going to be difficulties. It's just one of those days. I smell it. One nice thing, though, is that with StreamYard, the stream did not disappear. So you guys all stayed here. My computer just shut off completely and turned itself back on. Just one of those days. But thanks to the technology of StreamYard, we didn't actually lose the stream, so I didn't have to restart it. So yes, sorry for the interruption. I am back. Yeah, that had to do with which of these ports on this here Macintosh charges the computer via USB and which ones don't. I thought we were charging. And anyways, so, okay, so last thing we heard is in Catelyn's first chapter. Thank you very much. And I've got my bass here because I was just needed something to do while I was waiting for my computer to turn back on. So maybe you'll get some bass playing if, yeah, I'll do a bass playing super chat thing. So anyways, in Catelyn's first chapter, she's watching Ned polish his great sword. Nice. Polishing it lustily. I always find that to be a very Lightbringer-esque scene, if you will. In any case, he's polishing the black sword. It's beautiful, and it's got the ripples of the Valyrian steel in there. It's spell forged and all the way around. And oh, we've got a better connection now. So cool. All right. Everything works out in the end, I guess. So in any case, hey, Mama Pitbulls. What we have is, okay, I see the Pact question, Amelia. I will hold that one and get that one next. And I know Lauren's Corner had a question too that I need to get back to. Lauren, if you could actually, if you don't mind, reposting that in the chat, because I probably won't be able to get back to the one you posted a few minutes ago. So 400 years ago, like I said, the sword ice came into the possession of the Starks. It seems that, like I said, the Valyrians were hawking their Valyrian steel from Dragonstone, probably potentially from Driftmark and, Claw Isle, potentially too. But that is when the Valyrian steel was flowing into the Seven Kingdoms. So essentially the thing that you just need to know is that Ned's sword called Ice is 400 years old. It's Valyrian steel, but the Starks have a tradition of naming their swords Ice that goes back to, quote, the Age of Heroes, which means 5,000 to 10,000 years ago. So basically what it means is that the Starks have been naming their main sword Ice in some sort of remembrance, some sort of tradition. And the newest sword was called Ice 2, but that's not the original one. So what is the original one? The idea is that, well, if Dawn, the white sword of, House Dane, if that is Lightbringer, as many people think, then that means it must have been used by the last hero. It must have been the dragon steel of the last hero, which slayed the others. And that makes perfect sense, of course, to call Dawn dragon steel, because it's a meteor sword and meteors are dragons and all that shit. So essentially, if you have a last hero wielding Dawn, it's likely that the last hero was either a Stark or would have been remembered by everyone in the North because they led the Night's Watch against the others in the War for the Dawn. And so if you've got this legendary figure ending a long night with a big white sword, I'm pointing out that a big white sword kind of looks like it's made of ice. And therefore, it's the most likely candidate if we're trying to figure out where the tradition of calling the Stark sword Ice came from. Well, that would be the obvious contender, a big white sword. And then in the Dawn is Ice videos, I go further into the symbolic language of Dawn. It's pale as milk glass. That's, the bones of the others are described as pale as milk glass. And there's a lot of other common language. The ice swords that the others hold are alive with moonlight, which is almost like Dawn's alive with light. And there's a lot of stuff like that. So that's the idea, is that Dawn was originally used by a Stark last hero, then it got returned to Starfall, but that memory was important. And so the Starks have been naming their swords Ice forever. And now it's kind of ironic because we've got a black dragon sword. It's called Ice. That creates the symbol of black ice, which is also important. Jon, for example, in his Azor High Dream, he was defending the wall with a burning red sword, but he was also armored in black ice. And black ice is very interesting, again, because Ned's Valyrian steel sword is called Ice. And so you could almost look at Valyrian steel itself or Dragonglass as black ice, because Dragonglass is called frozen fire. So Valyrian steel is also kind of like frozen fire. It's the power of dragons and dragon fire, but turned into this cold steel item. And so I think what George is doing is he's presenting us black Valyrian steel and black Dragonglass. Collectively, we should think about them as frozen fire and black ice. That's one sort of symbolic family. And it stands in opposite to white Dawn and the idea of ice that burns. So Martin loves, the Lion of Night, like a sun that's dark. He loves these inversions. Nothing burns like the cold, but then there's a way to freeze fire. So, that's the stuff we're doing here. All right. So I've missed several super chats. Elisa Patience hooking me up. Thank you very much. I think I should be able to scroll up and see him. I saw him come through. Edward Lungu. I'm going to have to keep my answers shorter so I can get to all these questions. I think that some characters will not survive. I think that many characters will not survive. Many more than on the show, certainly. Let's see. For me, it's hard to believe when D&D said they had 3 WTF moments from Martin meeting when he was telling them the future. Do you think Martin lied to them? Okay, so no, I don't think Martin lied to them. But this 3 WTF moments thing is interesting to think about, because one of them was Shireen, the other one was Hodor, and I think they said the third one was King Bran, right? Well, that's interesting. Jon stabbing Dany doesn't qualify as a WTF moment. If George wrote that, and if George had said, yeah, guys, the ending is actually Jon stabs Daenerys in the heart and she turns into Hitler, and that's the ending I wrote. It's really crazy. That would be a WTF moment. And so the fact that that was not included in the list of WTF moments to me is yet another clue that the Jon stabbing Dany thing is something that D&D came up with. It is not part of the George ending. And in fact, they've actually kind of said that. They said something about, we came up with the Jon Dany ending back in season 3 and we've been working on it since then. But I don't know if they meant to say we came up with, but that is what they said. So I feel like they're kind of giving it away there. And all right, so going back up, see if there's any other super chats that I missed. Elisa, let me see if you are flagging me on one that I missed. I can answer this one really quick. Yeah, George has said won't be seeing a shy when originally he was going to show us. So yes, that's exactly right. Marwyn's going to bring the glass candles, and Dany will use those glass candles to communicate with Quaithe, or maybe just gain knowledge on her own. I should probably make a dedicated video about that. I've been talking about this theory forever. I should put together all the information and just make a short little video on that one, because I really think it's going to happen. And I think that we're going to see Dany turning into like a full sorceress and not just a dragon rider, which I'm really looking forward to. Okay, so let me get back to Emilia's question about the Pact. Where was it? I love talking about the Pact. That's one of my favorite topics. Shoot. Oh, here it is. Okay. Was the Pact made because both sides realized they'd mutually destroy each other unless they stopped? Does Night's Watch have a counterpart day watch, making sure the Pact is respected? Okay, so the Order of Green Men would be the counterpart to the Night's Watch, if there is such a thing. I don't know that you'd think about them as a day watch, but there's a lot of commonalities between those two. And I think the first Night's Watch may have been, resurrected Green Men, as I've said a couple times. So I want to talk about the Pact, though, in a little more detail. So guys, if you have a question, hold it for just about 5 minutes so that I can get this explanation out, because it's going to be a little longer. And if you ask me a question while I'm saying this, then I probably will miss it. So the Pact, I think the Pact, there's something about the Pact that isn't right as far as the timing of it. I think that the Pact was not made before the Long Night. I think that the Pact was part of the Long Night events. I think that, so essentially what George is doing is almost all of the important myths are actually talking about the same thing, the Long Night. Because really what George is trying to do is a little bit of a puzzle here. He's trying to clue us in about these important events of the Dawn Age and the original Long Night. And he's doing it through the myths a lot. And the Grey King myth is a big important one that I've talked about before. But the Hammer of there's two things that have to do with the Isle of Faces, all right? There's the Hammer of the Waters and there's the Pact. And I think that they're actually more closely related than people tend to think. And I'm going to play with my green screen real quick to see if I can, oh, that's probably better. There we go. Oh, now I've made holes in myself. See, I can disappear. Look, I'm just a mouth. This is actually kind of fun. I can materialize myself. Yeah, this is definitely fun. Why wasn't I playing with this before? This is delightful. I was just trying to get rid of this little speckle here over the couch, but I guess that's good enough. All right. So the Pact, what I think happened is the Hammer of the Waters is one of the most obvious moon meteor myths. Okay. There was a great magical act that happened. It either involved the sacrifice of children of the forest on the Isle of Faces or humans, but somehow there was massive blood magic that was worked. And then the Hammer of the Waters fell on the arm of Dorne. And oh gosh, I don't have my microphone on right now. How's the vocal quality? I think it's just using the Mac monitor. Let me turn on the other mic. I'm so sorry. I might have ADD also. Oh, and that isn't plugged in. That's why it's not on. Hang on one second, guys. All right. That's powering on, and I should have improved audio quality for you in one. Universal audio. Oh, there we go. Here we go. All right. Okay, so yeah, everyone's saying it's fine. Oh, yeah, only I maybe care about the difference, but this should be a little more dulcet on the tones, and it'll pick up the bass if I play the bass better. But the Hammer of the Waters is obviously a moon meteor, okay? So blood magic is worked on the Isle of Faces. Something called the Hammer of the Waters falls. That's the important word to me. It falls. And then the Arm of Dorne breaks. And like I said, there's a very obvious mechanism for the Arm of Dorne breaking. Could obviously be earthquake subsidence, although that large of an area subsiding from an earthquake would really be outside of what we've seen on planet Earth for the most part. But a meteor strike could absolutely cause that kind of land collapse. In fact, somebody did a really scholarly write-up on the doom of Valyria, and they pointed out that the only thing that could cause that much land to collapse and subside would actually be a meteor. Even like 14 or 15 volcanoes erupting couldn't actually account for that. Not that that's important because it's fantasy and Martin doesn't care about that kind of stuff. But the point is, the collapse of the Arm of Dorne could very easily be explained by a meteor. And when you talk about a hammer falling from the sky, like what is that? You know, that sounds like not an earthquake, but something falling and hammering down. And of course, there's all kinds of symbolism to suggest that the Hammer of the Waters was a moon meteor. Like, for example, one of the islands that is the remnants of the Stepstones is the remnants of the Arm of Dorne, which is now the Stepstone Islands, is called Bloodstone Island, which I take as a clue that that the Bloodstone Emperor was the one responsible for the Hammer of the Waters. And so then there's also, like, in the chapter where Ares Oakheart is in Dorne and Darkstar, injures Marcella, and that whole debacle happens at the Green Blood. There's a ton of Azor Ahai symbolism and Moon Maiden sacrifice stuff. And right in the middle of it, it says the sun was beating down like a fiery hammer. And that combines with the symbol of Dorne, with the spear going through the sun. So you have this idea of the sun can beat down like a hammer. But of course, the moon meteors came from the whole sun-moon conjunction, and they drank the fire of the sun and all that stuff. So that is, so that's one part of it. The Hammer of the Waters, probably a moon meteor. So now let's go back to the Pact. The Pact was when supposedly all the trees on the Isle of Faces were given faces, meaning all the weirwood trees, which didn't have faces, had faces carved into them. And it is very likely that face carving and opening up a weirwood tree to green seer inhabitation probably involves blood sacrifice. It's theoretical, but it's very likely that that is the case. You think about Bran watching the sacrifice of the victim in front of the heart tree and drinking the blood through the weirwood pond. So strongly implied that blood sacrifice is necessary. The Jojen paste thing. And by the way, I am working on a Jojen paste video because I wrote a theory about Jojen paste back in the day. But getting back to the Isle of Faces, we've got these two things going down. We've got a blood magic ritual that causes the Hammer of the Waters. And then we have this pact where all the trees are carved. There might be more blood sacrifice. And the thing about the pact is that this is the beginning of humans and children of the forest working together. When you think about children of the forest and humans working together, the important time that happened really was the Long Night. It was the last hero searching out the children for help and being beset by the others. His sword breaks, companions are dead. Basically, he's up against it. Then the children of the forest essentially saved him, according to Bran. His interjection in Old Nan's story. They came to the rescue somehow. So it's likely that they had something to do with the sword Dawn, actually, if you think about it, because the last hero has a broken sword. Then he gets help from the children, reemerges with dragon steel. So did the children have some magic to help him reforge a sword, or did they have a magic sword they got from the Great Empire of the Dawn? Did they facilitate something there? I'm not sure. We can talk about that in a minute. But the point is that when you think about the pact between humans and children of the forest, like, what would make an entire civilization of first men stop worshiping whatever religion they had before and take up the religion of their former enemy. The first men weren't conquered, so they didn't take up the religion of their conqueror by oppression. They took up the religion of the people that they were basically winning a war against. So what in the world could motivate the first men to do that? Well, it's very simple. If the children of the forest helped mankind to save the bacon during the long night, then yes, you would turn around and worship them. And the long night is also the exact kind of cultural bottleneck which clears the deck culturally. All the old systems of power crumble. The old structures crumble. Everybody gets into survival mode, and then new things are formed on the other side. And so new institutions are formed, new legends are formed. And so the idea that that's exactly the situation where you'd have first men coming out the other side of the long night with this new reverence and respect for the weirwoods and the children of the forest. And look at the Night's Watch. In A Game of Thrones, we see Jon and Sam go and swear their Night's Watch oaths to the weirwood trees. Whereas everybody else in the Night's Watch who are, that believe in the Seven, they say their oaths in the Sept. Okay. But the thing is, before the faith of the Seven came to Westeros, all of the Night's Watchmen would have been first men, with the exception of like Iron Islanders or maybe somebody from that worships the Squishers or something from like Cracklaw Point. But pretty much everybody in the original Night's Watch would have been saying their oaths to the Heart Trees, which means they're essentially swearing all of that stuff. I promise to defend the wall and hold, have no wife, and I am the all those promises they're making to the Green Seers and to the Weirwoods. So the Night's Watch and the Green Seers are like this. They are the same fighting force. And you have, so look at all this happening. You've got, again, the Green Seers helping the first men to organize into the Night's Watch to fight the others. And then they're forming a pact, and the first men are now worshiping the old gods. So all of this seems to me like it's all happening at the same time. And when you go back to the Isle of Faces and think about blood magic that brought down the Hammer of the Waters, well, let's finish that train of thought. If the Hammer of the Waters is the meteor drop, and if it was caused by all this horrific blood sacrifice on the Isle of Faces, well, let's go back to the Nissa Nissa Azor Ahai story. The moon cracks. When Azor Ahai stabs Nissa Nissa, it's an act of horrific blood sacrifice that causes the long night. So we have, again, the idea that blood sacrifice. Oh man, my green screen is going haywire. Let me see if I can tweak this a little bit. You have the idea of blood sacrifice causing the long night. Then we go to the Bloodstone Emperor story, yet another story about the cause of the long night. And what do we have? More blood sacrifice. He kills Nissa Nissa. He performs every kind of dark arts, and this brings on the long night. So that's why when you look at the Hammer of the Waters, we have the two important ingredients. We've got destruction falling from the sky, and we've got horrific blood magic setting it off. So to me, it's actually possible that the Azor Ahai and Nissa Nissa blood magic ritual happened on the Isle of Faces, and that it is the same thing as what is remembered as the cause of the Hammer of the Waters. So I think this is all part of the same thing. The Pact would have followed sometime shortly after the drop of the hammer, potentially like 10 years or something, however long the long night is. So, okay, that was a long explanation. Let me go back and see what I've missed in the chat during that time. Thank you, everybody. Hey, Mandy. Hello, everyone coming. And Nissa Nissa, yes. So Nissa Nissa may have been a child of the forest. I definitely think that she was. I think the clues are very strong as far as the symbolism goes. And so that would make sense having, if Nissa Nissa is a child of the forest, then it would make sense that her murder and that whole Azor Ahai blood magic shit went down on the Isle of Faces, because that's where we have green men and weirwood stuff going on. And that also makes more sense about the rumors that whoever the people that came to Old Town and built the Fewstone Fortress, well, they might have come here to trade with the children of the forest. Who knows? That's like the reason to come to Westeros, right? In the Dawn Age, the magic of Westeros, the Weirwoods, the Green Seers, the children of the forest. So you kind of see how the story comes together here. Great Empire of the Dawn comes to Westeros, Bloodstone Emperor seeking after magic. He's trying to break into the Weirwood net, essentially. That's what I've been describing for years. And so Nissa Nissa, being a child of the forest who's already connected to the Weirwood net, Azor Ahai essentially is killing her and using the power of that blood sacrifice to become a Green Seer and break into the Weirwood net. And I think this is part of the original abomination of the Long Night. Yeah. So many good questions. It's going to be hard to keep up today. Mark Van de Kalashhorst says, myth aside, what do you think actually happened when the Green Seers attempted to use the hammer a second time? I don't think they did. The idea that there was a second Hammer of the Waters comes from the fact... Why is somebody at my door? Somebody's at the door of my Airbnb. I'm confused. Sorry, guys. I'm doing a live stream. I can't answer right now. Okay, so fun times. Yeah, okay. I might actually have to deal with this. So I'm just going to call my roommate here. Sorry for the realness. Hang on, guys. I just got it. Is it the owner here? Oh, for my package or something? Okay. Sorry, guys. That's handled now. So essentially, what were we talking about? The idea that there was two Hammer of the Waters events comes from the idea that we're not sure where it was called down from. We have rumors that it was called down from the Isle of Faces, but there's also a story that it was called down from the Children's Tower at Moat Cailin. And it is, I think it is intentionally made unclear whether or not these are two different events, or that whether or not there's supposed to be two events, or if it's just the location is confused. But the thing about the version of the Hammer of the Waters tale that talks about it coming from Moat Cailin is very interesting, because it says the children of the forest work dark sorceries from the top of this tower in a black castle. And Moat Cailin is its own can of worms. It's gargantuan, megalithic construction that kind of resembles Yeen and nowhere else. And it might be oily black stone. But does that sound like the children of the forest to you? Atop a tower at Moat Cailin, like working sorcery? No, that's not really their MO. Like blood sacrifice in front of weirwood trees. No, that sounds like the children of the forest. So I think that there's something about the Moat Cailin hammer tale that is, like I said, it's meant to be intentionally confusing, but there's something there that's important. And when we think about the sorcery in a dark tower idea, well, that sounds more like an Azor Ahai type of thing. And the idea that the Moat Cailin is one of the most mysterious structures in all of Westeros and is very likely to have been built by some predecessor of the First Men or something, either Squishers or the Great Empire of the Dawn. I mean, those are really the two choices. So I do think that there might be some magic going on there. I don't tend to think that there is probably two hammer events, but some people do like the theory that there's been multiple long nights and multiple waves and cycles of this thing. That could be the case. But even if that is the case, I think that the important thing to understand will be just the most recent version of that event. So, all right. Let me resize my screen here so I can see this chat window better. Okay, and I apologize if I'm missing stuff here in the chat. Like I said, I'm having some little, and yes, that was Quinn. There is, yeah, it's just been an MFer of a technical day. So, all right. Super chats. Okay, so Elisa, yes. Tell me about the super chats. We've got Edward Lungu. I think your channel is one of the best. Thank you, my friend. I'll have to play some bass for y'all. I'm scrolling up. That's the last one I have in my chat window, Alyssa. Elisa, if you could. Okay, here's one. She repeats for me. Thank you. Why do you think D&D didn't use Martin's idea? Why did they change so much from the later book? Do you think they hated Martin? Okay, so that's assuming that I'm correct about the Jon and Dany thing being their invention. Well, I think that being charitable to D&D, you'd have to say that it's a monumental task to adapt something as huge as A Song of Ice and Fire, which George specifically wrote because he was tired of writing stuff for TV and wanted to write something without the constraints of having to think that it's eventually going to be TV. And then they turned it into TV. So it's kind of ironic. It's a little bit of an impossible task. And you can definitely see that after the Red Wedding, they were tried to consolidate a lot. They talked about really their initial goal only being to get to the Red Wedding and not being even sure. Because, you know, when you start a TV show, you're not sure if it's going to get syndicated for 8 years. You set a goal like 3 or 4 years at best. And that's what they did. They got to the Red Wedding. And then it seems that after that, they really, they didn't have the source material to work with after a certain point, and they're trying to condense. And so that was just the story that they came up with to wrap things up. And being a little less charitable to D&D, I would say that they're not very good writers. They don't understand a lot of the basic concepts of writing. I want to do a whole live stream called Stories Should Make Sense, and just talk about that. I mean, really, because it's Star Wars. It's a lot of things. Like, there are some basic story writing failures that are happening. I mean, we don't have to nitpick here. We're talking about basic stuff. They didn't understand Dany's character at all. And I don't really need to go into length on that, because I have 5 2-hour Dany videos, one of which features Elisa Patience. And we talk about, we just went through every book and went through all of her character decision-making points. And it's not to say that someone who is good, essentially, who shows us values that we respect, like selflessness and self-sacrifice and empathy, can't eventually become misguided and do something wrong. Lots of people have had good motives and done horrible things. However, I don't think that D&D understood Dany's character. They didn't understand what George is doing with Jon and Dany in particular. And so let's talk about that. So RLJ in the books, is going to be a multifaceted thing. There are magical ramifications, there are romantic ramifications, and there's also the sense of belonging and family that Jon and Dany should find with each other, because they both are very alienated. Jon has the whole bastard thing. He's not really a Stark going on. And once he finds out he's a Targaryen, he's going to be even more alienated, because great. Okay. So my dad died 20 years ago and I have no living family. That's sweet. And the last, mad king is my grandfather or whatever. So that's Jon's, he's very alienated. Dany obviously has been searching for the house with the red door, which is really just a sense of home and belonging for her entire arc. And she's gotten to the point where now, if she can't have it herself, it's become her mission to provide that home and safety to all of her, her subjects, which she thinks about as her children in a way. So I expect that RLJ in the books, you're going to see probably some romance, definitely. Although that depends on Jon's functionality, as we love to talk about, and how good of a resurrection he gets. But at the very least, they should identify with one another. They share a lot of values. I think more than any two characters in the story, Jon and Dany share values of self-sacrifice. They're both able to see outside the stereotypes that are held by other people around them. Jon with the wildlings, and Dany with just multiple times in Slaver's Bay. And so I think that they should feel like there should be a strong connection there, multiple connections. And the emotional one is going to be prominent, because George always talks about how the heart in conflict is so important. And when you read Dany's chapters, her desire for home and for family is so strong. It's obviously right at the core of her heart in conflict. And so in the show, RLJ was only used as a political wedge. That's it. As soon as Jon let the secret out in the crypts, Dany's immediate reaction was, that means you have a claim. And they immediately started getting tense about the claim to the throne. And then the horn blows and they've got to go and fight the others. And they never talked about it. And basically it was only used as a wedge to make Dany paranoid and fulfill the Mad Queen storyline. I think that sticks out to me like a sore thumb, as far as that doesn't fit what we've seen building up. So I think the entire Jon-Dany dynamic is something that D&D did not get. And that's going to be one of the most different things about the ending when we get it, in my opinion. Lauren's Corner. There's your question from earlier. Thanks for repeating it and being patient, Lauren. Do you think the fireworms, and by the way, Lauren's Corner has an awesome YouTube channel, all sorts of things, A Song of Ice and Fire, and lots of poetry. If you like poetry, definitely check out her channel. She asks, do you think the fireworms that were in the princess, Araya is her name, in Fire and Blood are connected to the House of the Worm? So House of the Worm is a short story that George wrote in the past. And I have not read it, but some of my smart friends on Twitter, I have seen them talking about it. And it seems that there are a lot of correlations. I wouldn't be able to ask. I wouldn't be able to answer that question because I haven't read it. But I would say that, yes, there are correlations. Martin always develops his ideas over time. If you read the short stories, you'll see that there are baby versions of a lot of A Song of Ice and Fire concepts in there. So there's no doubt to me that all the worm stuff he's been writing about in all of his books is probably of the same set of ideas that are developing. And as I, humorously pointed out in the last video, like there is a little God Emperor of Dune thing with Array's worms, like worms with hands and faces. Like that's the God Emperor. So also in the House of the Worm. So have you read that one?
Well, he has to cut off his arms and his legs to be worshipped by all the people. So it's like a big sacrifice, which is kind of like
I would not cut off my arms and legs to be worshipped as a worm. But so yes, there's if you're interested in this topic, it sounds like you should definitely read that book, and I'll put it on my list. So good question, Lauren's Corner. Okay, so Elisa Patience, I am so sorry. It looks like you are modding alone today. Let me see if I can get you some mod help. Let's see here. What did I? Justin Curl. Yes. All right. Oh, you just sent a thank you super chat. Well, thank you, Justin. I appreciate that. And let's see, I'm scrolling back up. Try to keep an eye on it, but somehow they slip by. It is ADD is an MFer sometimes. But all right, yes, Quinn is he's around the corner. He's hanging out. In any case, so yeah, okay, Scott McCloy, I can do that. The thing about this is I need to pull up the stream on YouTube in order to be able to bestow mod powers. And so let me just go ahead and do that. And yeah, and if you have more questions about the worm stuff or the Dracomorph, definitely you can fire those away too. There we go. Okay. So let's see here. Chow AJ. Yes. There's a likely mod. You've been modded. Scott McCloy. Yep. You seem like a reasonable person. There you go. Chris B. Yep. I'll get you. Tracy. Yep. I'll give you that. And guys, if I make you a mod, that doesn't mean you have like responsibilities. It doesn't mean you have to come to every stream. It doesn't mean you got to do a bunch of stuff. You don't have to do what every other mod does. It just means that you can help me catch something I missed, or if you see something inappropriate, and we should all, I think we're all pretty much on the same page with like what kind of stuff doesn't belong in the chat, then you can nix it. And that's about it. So yeah, nobody go all Euron with your mod powers here. So they're limited powers. Quinn, everyone says hi, by the way.
Hi, guys.
Quinn says hi. All right. So lay it on me, guys. What do you want to hear about next? What's your next question? Ooh, out of tune. There we go. What are the possibilities of Bran having his throne seat at the Isle of Faces? That's a good question. Yeah, I definitely think that could happen because King's Landing is probably going to get knocked up out for the most part. It's going to get the Debo treatment. I think you're going to have Fagon and Cersei are going to fight over King's Landing, and then Dany's going to get there. And of course, you guys know that I think Dany will eventually make the right choice to head north, but probably she'll get real close to trying to take the throne first. She might attack King's Landing, and it might be greater than expected casualties and fallout that causes her to like realize that the Iron Throne is a false prize and she needs to go north. I think something like the Sept of Baelor is foreshadowed to happen. I think it might be almost exactly the same. It's either going to be, Cersei did it or someone else did it, but there's definitely wildfire under the Sept of Baelor that's going to go boom. Sept of Baelor is a prominent ice moon symbol, and all the ice moon symbols go boom. The wall's coming down. You might get an avalanche in the Erie. The Sept of Baelor is going to blow up. Stuff like that. Yeah, it's all going boom. So I think that King's Landing could be a total ruin. So it could be, if Bran is going to be a mystical king, it could be from the Isle of Faces. But the thing is that I think that actually the job of King Bran is not going to be a Greenseer king. He's kind of going to be more like an ex-Greenseer king. And I started to get into this in the third King Bran series. But basically, I'm going to do a video about the idea that the Greenseers inside the Weirwoods is actually a total abomination that should never have happened. And what Bran's job is going to be is to download that entire Weirwood net, hive mind consciousness of all the dead Greenseers into his little Bran brain. And it's going to be out of the trees, and the trees will be like no longer infected with human consciousness. I think that is the ending. And then what works well with that is the idea that Bran now, as the recipient of all this knowledge, he's the last one with access to this encyclopedic knowledge of Westeros. So he's going to work with Sam and the Maesters, and they'll start writing that stuff down. That will help Westeros progress out of the Dark Ages, hopefully transition to something slightly more resembling, democracy and a little less feudalistic. So I think Bran is going to be this transition king. He's going to usher in a new kind of summer king era. So yeah. Am I planning to do more videos with Quinn? Well, always, in general. I mean, we're roommates now, so, we'll definitely make videos together, but there will be a few more of the Winds of Winter predictions videos. We've got a couple topics that we haven't gotten to yet still. And if we think of more ideas in the future, we might do that. And yeah, I'm sure we'll do some stuff. But Quinn is in Dune mode right now because the new Dune movie's coming out in the winter, and they're just starting to trickle out information and pictures, and they're waiting on the trailer. And the Dune audience, is they're fired up. And Quinn has, created his place in that fandom a long time ago. He's looked at as one of the prominent Dune people. So anything Dune related he can do right now is definitely, it's the time for it. So we did a bunch of the Song of Ice and Fire stuff, but we'll definitely do some more stuff. And yeah, maybe I'll read Dune so I can hang out with him on a Dune stream one time. But until I do, I don't have enough street cred. I've only seen the stupid David Lynch movie. So, all right. So, oh, that's a good question. This one here, sorry. You hear about the theory that Dragonbinder is actually a slave horn that binds people to dragons, i.e. Targaryens. Euron's plot to court Dany might be to confuse subjugation with the praise she's used to. So will the Dragonbinder horn, well, first question is, does the Dragonbinder horn have an effect on people? And if so, is that something that Euron could use to ensorcel Dany? That's pretty realistic, honestly. If you look at the King's Moot, everybody's kind of agreeing with Asha, and then Euron gets up and starts talking nonsense and then blows that friggin' horn. Or actually, he blows the horn first and then starts talking nonsense. But the thing is, everybody changes their mind. So it's possible that Euron just gave a great speech. Also possible that, there's some magic going on there. So, yeah. Oh, I guess, yeah. In fairness to David, yes. Okay. So David Lynch did say that he was not happy with the final version of the movie, and it sounds like he made some choices he regrets, and then also didn't have total control over some other choices. So, and I actually liked the Dune movie. I thought it was fine until I learned about what the story was going on. Like, oh yeah, the movie definitely skipped that and didn't do that. But the movie's decent. I mean, Quinn doesn't hate the movie either. It's just that particularly the first part of the movie is pretty good, and the second part starts just skipping over stuff that needed to be developed. So it was like, gonna have a montage, moon dream montage, and then all of a sudden he's Muad'Dib. So skipped a couple things there, but in any case, the movie is as a filmmaking thing, it's pretty awesome. It's got some great moments. Definitely has a cool steampunk.
Costumes are great.
The costumes are great, yeah. And I actually do have, if you guys have seen my Rhaegar show, video where I took The Witcher and pretended like it was a story about Rhaegar and Ashara and made like a total spoof video. I'm gonna do that with Dune, and because there's a lot of A Song of Ice and Fire stuff in there that you can sort of squint at and make into different things. So I'll get on that at some point here pretty soon. Yeah, I thought the ray guns were cool. And the music by Toto, that's definitely legendary.
Oh, definitely.
All right. I read someone argue that Azor Ahai and the Prince That Was Promised should be thought of as distinctly separate things lumped together by history. Euron could be Azor Ahai and Jon could be the Prince That Was Promised. Yeah, that could be. I think that all of those prophecies, Martin has advertised that they're going to be tricky and they're going to be deceptive. So, for example, I think the Prince That Was Promised thing is actually about the prince that was promised to the others, about, the Starks stealing a baby from Night's King and Night's Queen that was destined to become an other, just as Samwell, the Night's Watchman, helped Gilly, save, baby monster from being turned into another. And so I think that it's possible that Jon and or Dany have to kind of give themselves back to the others in some sense in order to fulfill a pact. And so that Prince That Was Promised thing could have a definite twist as far as being promised to the others. I do think that it's possible Azor Ahai and Bloodstone Emperor and the Last Hero, even though they seem like the same archetype, kind of, they could definitely be separate people. And sometimes I talk about, Azor Ahai people, because there could have even been like a group of sorcerers that were all like Lightbringer wielding dark magic MFers, and it was just turned into a legend of one person. I don't even think it's that important. So I think Martin will never tell us exactly. And as far as the more important thing is the characters in the main story, right? And to to the point of the question, yes, Euron is one manifestation of Azor Ahai. He's showing us the Bloodstone Emperor version, the person questing after magic power who's reaching too high and is going to pull down the apocalypse. Jon Snow and Dany are more obviously cast as a heroic figure, but some of the dark deeds that they do or almost do will also echo the dark side of Azor Ahai. Jon has Night King echoes, as I've pointed out a couple times. So, yes, there are multiple manifestations of the hero. And I also think that Azor Ahai can be looked at as just the hero's journey thing. And so in the sense that every character is the hero of their own story, every character has a little Azor Ahai moment or symbolism that happens from time to time. Was the 13th Lord Commander, Simeon Star Eyes or Eldrick Shadow Chaser? Well, I don't know. And the Simeon Star Eyes myth is one that I've never really hacked apart. A Serwyn of the Mirror Shield, I understand as far as astronomy goes, but Simeon Star Eyes is a weird one. Obviously, it has something to do about the others, somebody putting star sapphires in their eyes. He went to the wall to watch the Hellhounds fight. And to me, that sounds, the Hellhounds are dire wolves. So to me, that sounds like the idea that the Night King and the man who threw him down, who supposedly was Brandon the Breaker, were brothers. Of course, even though Night King is implied as living after the Long Night, it is my headcanon that Night King lived during the Long Night, and that the Brandon the Breaker story is actually the Last Hero story. And so I think that essentially the Last Hero was a Stark, and he would have either been the son or the brother of the Night King. And so that would have been the Hellhounds fighting. Simeon Star Eyes watching that. I'm not really sure what that means, though. Your guess is as good as mine. All right. And I will just remind everyone to slap the like button. Yeah, slap the like button, y'all. Slap like now, says Davey504. And yes, I'm absolutely planning a Davey504 heist. I've got to write God's own bass riff, or maybe Satan's own bass riff, so I can get something that catches his interest, but it'll happen. All right, let's see here. Know any Megadeth, Smitty? No, I do not know Megadeth. I'm sorry. I have an appreciation for Megadeth, but I don't know any of it. Oh, okay. Super chat question from Mogerts Hogerts. Thank you, Elisa. Let me go back up and get it. Where is it? Kraken Tacos at the 666. Thank you, buddy. Man, it must have been a while ago. Let's see if I can. Oh, I think he did a super chat and then sent the question after. Right, it was the $50 one at the beginning. Okay, so where is the actual? Here it is. What if Dany has to be revived and learn Quaith's truth in a shy after death? To touch the light, you must pass beneath the shadow. Rebirth. Okay, so actually, that's a good idea that I've not really ever thought about. Yeah, could Dany end up doing a resurrection thing at some point, like Jon does? Yes, absolutely. I think I maybe ignored this because people have asked me a lot if Dany died when she walked into the pyre. And I don't think that she did. I strongly feel that she did not. And that she's not a fire white or anything like that. But the idea that she could become one, that absolutely would make a ton of sense. I don't know when it would happen or how, but connecting it to that Quaith prophecy makes a lot of sense also. Yeah, passing beneath the shadow to touch the light. Absolutely. That could be, passing through death to come back to life. So okay, so let's think about this. A good candidate for that would be whatever happens at the Mother of Mountains. In the TV show, I very much liked what they did with her burning all the cows in the tent there. In fact, I love that scene. It's one of my favorite scenes in the show. Tipping over the braziers, and oh man, that was just peak Emilia Dany for me. But I think something will happen where she overthrows the cows, completely changes the power structure of the Dothraki. That's already been happening anyways when she was with Khal Drogo and she was going against their customs. And so I think, yeah, that could be some sort of fiery conflagration that actually does consume her. But then who would resurrect her? Could Quaith resurrect her remotely? Would she have to be there? Maybe in Volantis, when Dany comes to Volantis, there's Red Priest there. Perhaps a Red Priest could show up in Slaver's Bay or even in the Dothraki Sea. I mean, that's possible. Mokoro gets visions and then gets on ships that he knows are going to get destroyed in a storm, so he can float in the ocean for 10 days and appear on a different ship. And he's like, yes, exactly as I planned. So Red Priest could pretty much turn up anywhere, I would say. Overthrows the calls, not the cows. Don't go cow tipping in the Dothraki Sea. I do not endorse call tipping. Dany went call tipping. That's cool. That sounds like a meme. So now George has said that she's not going to go to Ashai. So I do think that the Ashai connection will happen via Glass Candle for sure. And let me see. How are we doing on time here, guys? Oh, it's only 1 o'clock. I'm having a time compression thing. Seems like it's been here for a minute. Seems like it's been 2 hours, but it hasn't. Here's a good one. Thank you, Chris B. Dany could have parallels to Inanna's descent into the underworld. That's the original passing beneath the shadow. Yeah, totally. Inanna is a morning star deity connected with Venus, and very like South American myth where the hero twins go into Zabalba and come back up in a mimic of, the idea of a star or a sun dropping below the horizon. Inanna's got a similar thing. And that also is similar to the Persephone myth, which George is using the Persephone stuff all over the place. So Crispy, I should research that one. Henbot with a $5 super chat. Thank you. Nice avatar. That's awesome. Mokoro, just according to Kikaku. I don't know what Kikaku is. That sounds like a reference I don't get. And yeah, there's, we don't have many inappropriate comments in the chat these days. You all are beautiful. We've got 497 people here, and you're all lovely people who don't make inappropriate comments. How special is that? How special is that? That's very special. So yeah, let's do, I need to follow up on the Inanna thing. I've also got a ton of Kali Dany stuff of research that I did like a long time ago and I've just never put out. So, and just to talk about my channel for a second, guys, Oh, I have a Starry Wisdom question, Ember Reed. Yes. Let me see if I can either repeat it to me or I'll try to find it. I love talking Starry Wisdom. So guys, as far as videos goes, I am going to try to make all kinds of stuff right now. Usually what I do is I go with a series. Like I get into like the Great Empire of the Dawn. I've been making Great Empire of the Dawn videos for a while. I made the King Bran series. That's usually how my mind thinks to work. But I'm really trying hard to get this YouTube channel grown up to a bigger point. We've gone from 15,000 to 20,000 subscribers in the course of doing this Winds of Winter predictions video. And just to give you guys a little behind the scenes talk, subscriber numbers are not everything. There are channels that have 5 times the subscribers that I do, and yet I'm getting more likes and views and interaction from you guys on these videos that I'm putting out. So thank you. First of all, the high level of engagement really helps the channel. But yeah, I'm trying to boost the subscribers as well so that I can just, have more time to do this. Because right now I'm not quite making enough money to do this full time. And so I've got to do other things and, whatever. So I'm trying to grow the channel. Long story short, YouTube likes short videos. I like very long videos, and I'm trying to strike more of a balance with that. So anywhere that I can see an idea like the Jojen paste, for example, where I can make like a 10-minute or 15-minute video, I'm going to be trying to do more of those. And that will also be exciting because you sort of won't know what you're going to get from me. Instead of being like, oh, he's talking about Great Empire of the Dawn for checks notes 5 months. You'll get a little more just like here and there stuff. I'm going to do a Dany video about the House of the Undying. I'm going to do a Jojen paste video. I'm going to do one about just the oily black stone and what I think it is and stuff like that. So just a heads up, you're going to be seeing all kinds of different things fly out of this channel from me. And it really helps, guys, if you just share the stuff to other people. If you're wondering like, well, what can I help you do to pump the subscribers up? You guys already subscribe. So just share, just share it with other people. Hey, this is cool. And that's it. That's how it grows. Church of Starry Wisdom's Endgame. Okay, so we got into this in the Church of Starry Wisdom live stream, in case you missed that. But I think that essentially, even though they seem very nefarious, it seems that both Quave and Marwyn want Dany to use her dragons against the others, which is actually the right thing to do. So it could be that the current adherents of Starry Wisdom Church are thinking about cleaning up the mess of the Bloodstone Emperor. They might not be trying to continue the evil of the Bloodstone Emperor. So I actually am kind of looking up on the motives of the Starry Wisdom Church, because I do think, of course, that Dany needs to become a sorceress and all in order to defeat the others. I mean, I don't think it's too simple and straightforward that's the case. I think that is exactly what she has to do. It's just what you'd think. How do we kill the ice demons? With dragons, so. Oh, Dunk and Egg, man. Yeah, I do need to do Dunk and Egg. I have done some big sections about Dunk and Egg in some of my essays because there is a lot of mythical astronomy. So I'd have to pick an angle to do Dunk and Egg stuff. But yeah, I love Dunk and Egg. They are incredible. If anybody hasn't read Dunk and Egg, definitely do that. It's exceptional. And yeah, that's true. When Winds of Winter drops, I'll be in a very good position. Those Winds of Winter predictions videos that me and Quinn did are doing awesome. And of course, they'll get a whole new wave of interest when the Winds drops and when the announcement comes. And I'll be reading Winds voraciously and putting out content as furiously as I can, of course, when it comes out. So yeah. All right, guys. Throw some more questions at me. And thank you, just general thank you to everyone who leaves a comment just along the lines of, I'm enjoying the material. Thank you very much. Thanks for the content. Always appreciate those. I'm only trying to make money out of this to facilitate my habit. My habit is symbolism and mythology. Like if it were up to me, I would just live in a vacuum and work on this stuff all day. So the attempt to make money is essentially just to enable my symbolism habit. And so thank you very much, you guys who toss me coins. Oh, we're going to have a party when Winds comes out. We're going to have a party when they just announce that Winds is coming out. And yes, Tracy, like I was saying earlier, there will be more Winds of Winter predictions video. We're definitely going to have one on Rickon and definitely on RLJ. I was talking a little earlier about the RLJ ramifications, but we're going to go into more depth on that. And we've got one about the Veil, and I think there might be one more. But yeah, at least 3 or 4 more planned. And we might, you know, like I said, think of some too. When it comes out, do I plan to binge it linearly or particular POVs or look up the epilogue? Yes. So the main question for me, Ouroboros, nice name, is am I going to read the book or am I immediately going to my Kindle and word searching for Comet? Because I think that the new long night, which is obviously coming, will be caused by a new meteor event. And so there should be something by the winds of winter about the comet coming back around or fire from the sky or something like that. So it's going to be very hard for me not to word search immediately to try to see if that theory is right. I will definitely say that. Let's see. I think I missed a super chat up here. Let me go back. Yeah. How much of your theorizing do you think we are going to get hard answers on in the next 2 books? Oh, that's a good question. Like, obviously, we should get the Euron stuff in the next book, but how about your others? Well, like I was saying, my biggest prediction is that the cause of the new long night will be another meteor event. That has to happen by the end of Winds of Winter, I would think. However it's caused, you know, the long night should fall by the end of Winds. And so we should know whether or not there's a meteor. And if there is some sort of fire from the sky type of event, that alone will be huge confirmation of my original theory that it was a meteor that did it the first time. But then apart from that, we've also got Dany gazing into the glass candle, you know, searching out secrets. And we've got Bran with Weirwoodnet TV. And so it would not surprise me at all for a Bran chapter in Winds, you know, for him to see the Hammer of the Waters. Maybe he glimpses human sacrifice on the Isle of Faces, very much like he saw in the Winterfell Godswood. And then you just see the fiery dragon falling from the sky and then an explosion. It'll all be described in mythical language, but we'll be able to tell that it was the meteor attack. So I think we will get some confirmation of this. Similarly with the Great Empire of the Dawn, any confirmation that we get is going to come from Dany's vision. Like, what if she sees those gemstone emperors again? They were telling her all kinds of cool shit last time. Maybe they'll start, you know, telling her more stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of places where we could get some confirmation, mostly in the form of echoes, you know, of the past. So Elisa, I see you're trying to get my attention here. Was there a question I missed? Oh, I'm way back in the chat. Never mind. So yes, Crazy Cat Girl, what if Euron blowing the horn calls down the comet? That's the money prize. I was trying to do this. Sorry. There's a headspace switch that goes from talking to bass playing, so there's a little bit of a... Any case, what is the horn called? The horn's called Dragonbinder. If comets are dragons, then Dragonbinder could be Cometbinder. Absolutely. And when you look at the symbolism of Dragonbinder, it looks a lot like Lightbringer. It's described as a white hot scream. It's a shivering hot scream that split the air like a sword thrust. And if you remember, Nissa Nissa's cry is what breaks the moon in one story, but we actually know it was the comet that broke the moon. So there's a parallelism between a woman's scream and this comet sword, which is why we have a sword called Widow's Wail, for example. And so Dragonbinder is compared to a scream. It's a shivering hot scream, so it's an ice and fire scream. It splits the air like a sword, and it's got a bunch of other language that all sound like Lightbringer. Plus, there's the whole horn thing. If you think about the horn as like a dragon's horn, it's a stabbing implement, just like a sword or anything else. So the idea of a horn that's like a dragon sword and also a sound and a scream, it's all kind of wrapped up there. So I actually do owe you guys one more episode on that. I think it was back in Blood of the Other that I was going to do a horn episode and then sort of got sidetracked. So yeah. Puppy, please stop. You can't come inside. Yeah, no, you can't. Anyways. All right. So I do have hopes that maybe the horn call will be something that calls back the comet. It'll probably be like, we won't know exactly, but maybe when it's blown by Dany, or maybe when it's blown by Euron in a certain place with other magic, it will then, call the comet. Or maybe the horn blowing that they've already done has called the comet. And as soon as we open Winds of Winter, it's going to be like, and the red comet was back, and they'll be like, it was all that horn blowing. So, yeah. Do-do-do-do-do-do. Hey there, Delise, showing up in the chat. Cracking tacos. If I haven't said hi to you. Let's see here. Yes, it is Quinn's puppy. She's not. Yeah, a little bit, yeah. She just wants to come in like always. So when you're talking about Sword of Shannara, Mr. Evans, what are you in what sense are you thinking? I do think that Sword of Shannara is one of those legendary fantasy things that, like, something George, I can see George giving a hat tip to it. The interesting thing about Sword of Shannara to me is that the sword itself is not for swinging. Its purpose is more magical. It like reveals truth or something like that. And I've wondered if maybe Dawn, it's got something more to it than swinging and chopping, which is what I was talking about. Like maybe Dany's going to use it in a magical way. I think that is possible. So, there's a super chat. Jasmine Johnson, do you think the cold sickness will come back, be worse, and is from the others? Oh, are you talking about, gosh, there's a couple of them in Fire and Blood. They kind of sound like diseases or epidemics, but all the symbolism is like freezing and dying and stuff. So it definitely sounds like George is playing with some sort of implication there. I know we're going to get grayscale. I mean, the grayscale outbreak is foreshadowed, and I'm already don't know what George is going to do with grayscale other than just make things more horrible in general. It could play into like King's Landing and why it has to be burned or something like that. But the cold sickness, I think, is mostly something in Fire and Blood that's meant as symbolic foreshadowing. So if we read over those passages, like one of Jaehaerys' children named Daenerys caught the cold sickness and died. So to me, that could be a clue about Daenerys either doing a death and resurrection thing or having to give herself to the others in some sense. And, oh gosh, if Dany isn't resurrected on the Dothraki Sea or in Volantis, north of the Wall, right? I mean, that could be the other place. What if she goes into the Weirwood Net and has to die and do some kind of crazy thing, again, like a Nissa Nissa thing where she dies and goes into the Weirwood trees, and then comes back out as the Night Queen. Holy shit, that makes a bunch of sense, actually. Back when we were doing the series called Signs and Portals, which I've only got 2 episodes of, we were talking about basically the Nissa Nissa Night's Queen riddle. Are they connected? Are they the same person? Are they sisters? Because we see all these Fire Queens and Ice Queen characters, the Icy Moon Maidens and the Fiery Moon Maidens throughout the story. And so there's a very strong parallel. And then, of course, Melisandre and the Shadow Babies is kind of showing us the whole other creation process, but with fire magic instead, which strongly implies that the Shadow Babies are kind of like weird analogs to the White Shadow Others. And so I think that it is what we could be building towards. And it seemed like the consensus among the myth heads is that the most likely scenario is that Nissa Nissa died. She's killed by Azor Ahai. That gains Azor Ahai access into the Weirwood Net. Nissa Nissa's spirit essentially forms the Weirwood Net as we know it. She's the first green seer to sort of become like, she's kind of like the sea. Like that's what the symbolism implies. If you look at the last 2 episodes of Weirwood Compendium, where I'm talking about Dany and the green sea symbolism that Ravenous Reader found, the implication is that Nissa Nissa's death helps create the Weirwood Net that humans can then go into. So she's kind of like a portal. And that's why we have all this Nissa Nissa Weirwood door symbolism. And so it could make a lot of, so what we think happened is that Nissa died, went into the Weirwood net. Azor Ahai goes into the Weirwood net, but then Nissa and the Weirwoods essentially turn the game on Azor Ahai. They trap him, turn him into the Night King or something like that. And there's a lot of clues that Night Queen is none other than the spirit of Nissa reborn, or the spirit of Nissa inside the Weirwood tree. Ball the Bard has tuned into symbolism, which implies that Night Queen was the Weirwood in some sense. To me, that makes sense. If Nissa's spirit is inside the Weirwood, then that whole thing about the Night King seeing the woman north of the wall and chasing her and loving her, well, north of the wall is often used as an analog for inside of the Weirwood net. So it could be very easily that the Night King chasing Night Queen is actually just Azor Ahai in the Weirwood net chasing after Nissa, essentially. And it seems like this time the tables are turned. Nissa, reborn as Night Queen, has the power. This is all, again, this is just one scenario that I'm sketching out for you. This is not necessarily my headcanon. They could be sisters or something like that. However, if Dany goes and dies some sort of icy death, as was foreshadowed with the baby Daenerys, Jaehaerys and Alysanne's young child that died of the icy sickness, then it could be Dany going in and having an icy death, but then being reborn in some way, maybe only spiritually, but maybe physically. Absolutely. All that could happen. Bring on the magic. So, all right. Sierra, I have missed your super chat. I apologize. And Alyssa is going to repost it for me. And in the meantime, I will get Thomas Carroll's super chat. Do you foresee any development on the question of where Benjen is or on the identity of Cold Hands? Yes. I do think we'll find out Benjen. We need to find out Benjen's death. That's just hanging, and we need to find out what it was. I think he'll be dead or undead in some sense. Cold Hands, I hope that we find out the truth of Cold Hands. I strongly feel that he's thousands of years old, that he's likely to be one of the last heroes party, or maybe even the last hero. That's what I think. And here is the one I missed from Sierra. Thank you, Sierra, by the way, and thank you, Elisa, once again. What was the Great Empire of the Dawn doing with Valyrians and their genetics? Was that part of creating the dragons and the dragon riders? But then how would the Great Empire of the Dawn ride dragons? Was Blood of the Dragon created with Valyrians? So it sounds like you have watched Amanda's videos, the Crowfoot's daughter, and that you are asking about sort of a sub-idea in there, which is that perhaps the Great Empire of the Dawn were not all Valyrian-looking. Perhaps the dragon-blooded people, the people that were the Blood of the Dragon experiments, were specifically created by the Great Empire of the Dawn to be tools to bond or bond with dragons, or to help breed the dragons. And so it could be that the Valyrians weren't even they weren't on top. They weren't the masters, if you will, in the Great Empire of the Dawn. But then let's say some of the, in this scenario, for example, like I said, the Valyrians are created as a Blood of the Dragon experiment by the Great Empire of the Dawn. But then once the Great Empire of the Dawn falls apart, some of those experiments are now people with free will, and they decide to form Valyria. And so that would be kind of cool, because then it's got like a tables turning kind of a thing where the Valyrians were victims at first. They were the victims of horrible experimentation, but then they managed to gain power or something like that. I think that's a cool idea. I don't know if that would be something that George would be able to confirm. But Crimson Templar also. And Tracy reposted it. Okay, so let me see. Thank you, Tracy. Welcome to my madness, new moderators. Have you considered the possibility of the sun rising in the west when Dany goes to the heart of winter? So what does that mean, I guess, is the question. What does the sun rising in the west mean? Well, that could certainly be the meteor impact. When there's the disaster at Hardhome, it's described as looking like the sun rose in the north. And I believe during the forest fire in Dunk and Egg, when the woods are burned down, there's implication of a sun rising in the west, or the bonfire looking like the sun was rising in the west or something like that. So I think that language almost always refers to a fire, a conflagration event. So I would like it if that could happen. So let me see here. And I've just got something I need to do in the chat real quick. Unless somebody already took care of that. Looks like somebody did. Oh, Smitty, you want to be a mod? I'll make you a mod. No problem, dude. No problem. Okay, so let's see, where were we? And we're going to talk about now. Oh, I can do this now. In fact, oh, look at that. Cool. It didn't used to be that I could do my mod things from the StreamYard, but now I can. That's cool. All right, so yeah, StreamYard is awesome, guys. If you want to do any live streaming, and I've encouraged people to like start your podcast or start your YouTube channel if you can right now, since we're all like, you know, stuck at home and looking for stuff to do. Of course, if you're not dealing with an actual sickness or death, then of course sympathy for everyone who is. But yeah, if you've ever thought about doing some YouTube action, you should. StreamYard is awesome. It's very easy to use. So I totally recommend that. It totally fixed the problem of Google Hangouts from YouTube, which used to be easy and then got really hard. So yeah. Have you read And Seven Times Never Kill Man by George? No, I haven't. I need to read that one too. I know that one's got some strong parallels. Do you think the way the pyramids converted the steel angels mirrors what happens with the first men and the trees? Yeah, I can't answer the question, obviously, because I haven't read the book, but the answer is probably yes. Everything in his earlier stuff are parallels to what's going on in Song of Ice and Fire, actually. All right. Let's see here. Well, Ember, thank you very much for all your comments. I'm enjoying your comments today. You've given me several good ones. So thank you. Yeah, so Peter's saying, yeah, there's a scene in Duncan Egg where the people it looks like the sun is rising in the west. I'm pretty sure that is the forest fire when they burn down the wood at the end of the Sworn Sword, which is really cool. I mean, that is tip-top symbolism, so love that. All right. Alyssa, we would definitely follow your YouTube channel. Are you kidding? Absolutely. Here's a good question. Do you think the 5-year gap messed something up? And if yes, what's the biggest issue? Well, the comet coming back would actually make more sense with the 5-year gap. You know, comets have weird orbits and stuff, but it's a little weird that the comet would come back so quickly. You know, a few more years would probably make more sense. A really important ramification is the dark star stealing dawn theory, which I will claim is my theory. Before the 5-year gap, we meet Ed Dane, you know, Edric Dane, with the great Eldritch Shadow Chaser name, and he's only like 13. Arya meets him with the Brotherhood. He's squiring for Beric. You know, don't call me Azor Ahai Dondarrion, as I pointed out, and that's really great symbolism because we've got a last hero Dane figure squiring to an undead Azor Ahai Lightbringer wielding guy. And so I think originally George's plan. So here's what I think. I think that, and here now we're getting to the Dawnbringers topic. I think that Jon or Dany are the people that are supposed to wield Dawn. Absolutely, they're the ones. And so the Dane blood's going to be important. But the way that this seems to be happening is that George has always planned for the sword Dawn to just kind of somehow get out of Starfall, you know, and circulate around and sort of accidentally or through circumstances end up in the hands of Jon or Dany. And so I think that originally the idea was that Ned Dane was going to be named the Sword of the Morning because he would have been 18 by then. So he's big and strong enough to wield Dawn. And what happened then was that essentially with the 5-year gap, it now no longer makes sense because Ned Dane's only 14 and it wouldn't make sense to call him the Sword of the Morning. He's just not big enough. He wouldn't have done enough to accrue that level of valor and respect. It just doesn't make sense. And so that's why in book 4, after the 5-year gap has been scrapped, all of a sudden we have this Darkstar guy. And Darkstar is opposite of Ned Dane as far as worthiness goes. Darkstar would never be named Sword of the Morning. he's presented to us as a shady figure, and then he slashes a child across the face. So clearly this is a quote unquote bad guy, to the extent that we have those in A Song of Ice and Fire, which we do. And so I think that the way that it makes sense to replace Ned Dane with Darkstar is if the only purpose is simply just to get Dawn out of Starfall, because you can do it with either character. You can have Ned Dane be awarded the sword officially, and then he goes out and dies in a battle, and Jon picks it up. You know, Ned Dane, I'm showing up to help the Night's Watch fight for the War of the Living. I mean, in the show, we saw a bunch of random people sort of migrate towards the fight with the others. I think we will also see that in the books. I think Jaime's definitely going to end up, you know, fighting in the North. Gendry could end up with, Ned Dane would have made sense as an 18-year-old Sword of the Morning, absolutely. But now he's not going to be old enough. And so I think instead what we're going to get is Darkstar stealing Dawn, and then, you know, he's going to get killed somehow and someone's going to take it from him. And in particular, I think that Darkstar wielding Dawn is going to be something we see in Fagon's Kingsguard, as I've said a few times, because think about it. Fagon, you know, hashtag Trugon, he's fake Rhaegar's son. He's fake Aegon. And he's trying to capitalize on the mystique of Rhaegar. Like, I'm just as good as Rhaegar. And so wouldn't it make sense to have fake Rhaegar standing next to fake Arthur Dayne, if you will? Somebody who's a pale imitation of Arthur Dayne. That would be Gerald Dane. And he's got Dawn, but he stole it. So it's just like a crappier, less honorable version of Arthur Dayne. Rhaegar and Arthur Dayne, to have Fagon and Gerald Dane. So I think we'll see that for a little bit. And guys, I would love to hear your guess. Who is going to kill Darkstar and take that sword? Will it be Jon himself? Will it be someone else? Will it be Ned Dane with a little bit of help? I'd love to see it. So yeah, tell me what you think, guys. $50 super chat, a sticker from Harrison. Harrison is one of my old school patrons. So I will definitely not want to miss that. Diadelphi Morphia. I have a question that takes too many words to describe. Please see the post below. All right. I will see. Oh, I see it here. Okay. You're linked to Bloodstone Emperor killing the Amethyst Empress and starting the Long Night with Azor Ahai violating the Weirwoods by killing Child of Forest Nissa Nissa, followed by her resurrecting as an Ice White Night's Queen and making the others with Azor Ahai. Yeah, that's essentially what I just laid out, right? Who was also from the Stark lineage. Am I missing the connection from the Emperor to Azor Ahai to the Starks? Is it a blood lineage of really bad dudes? Same person that starts in the Empire of the Dawn, travels to Westeros, enters the Weirwood, then comes back out of the Weirwoods back into the flesh. Okay, so great question. And basically you're just asking me to put my tinfoil together in a more coherent fashion, which is great. So this is, I think that part of it comes from the idea that there is multiple heroes here. There was almost certainly multiple heroes the first time. At the very least, we have the last hero and his group of 12. And we've got, or the last hero and the original Night's Watch. And then we've got, Nissa Nissa is kind of a hero. She's an important figure. And then in the modern story, we've got all kinds of heroes. We've got Jon and Dany that are both very strong Azor Ahai resurrection people. But then we've also got Arya and Samwell and Davos that do a lot of Azor Ahai symbolism too. So multiple heroes, teamwork, I think that's going on. But to get to the question, what I think, and I was going back up to look at this again. What I think is going on, essentially, as far as the Starks, how do the Starks connect to the Great Empire of the Dawn? I think the Starks are a combination of First Men blood and one Azor Ahai person that got his bloodline in there. We see that pattern over and over and over. We see somebody with Night King symbolism slipping their genetics into the line of House Stark. So not Mance Raider, Baal the Bard. Sorry, not Baal. Baal the Bard's my friend. Baal the Bard is, of course, the character who Mance Raider idolizes. And he snuck into Winterfell, disguised himself as Sideric of Skagos, Sideric meaning deceiver in the old tongue, and he essentially had an affair with the daughter of Winterfell, who's symbolized as the Blue Rose. And they have a child together. They hide in the crypts for a year or something, and then they come out and they have a kid. And basically that child becomes the heir to Winterfell and later kills his father in battle, actually, which would be a Night King Last Hero echo, where the Last Hero kills the Night King. So you kind of have the whole scenario laid out there. You've got a Night King figure who I identify with Azor Ahai, slipping his genes into the line of House Stark, only to have that son come back and kill him in battle. And so that would be analogous to if the Last Hero is essentially a stolen other baby who's only 13 or so when he grows up and comes back and kills his dad. I think that's a very possible scenario. And that means that essentially the dragon blood that got into the Stark bloodline might have been washed through ice magic first. That's what I'm saying. Because Azor Ahai is the dragon person, but he would have turned into Night King. And then his magical baby with the Night Queen is what becomes rescued. It becomes the baby stolen from the others, the prince that was promised to the others, just like Gilly's baby monster, gets raised as a Stark. And so the Starks actually have the blood of the other. And that's why I titled that series The Blood of the Other. But the blood of the other is just fire magic flipped over into ice, I think. And so it kind of all connects at the end. And so the Starks shouldn't be regarded as dragon people. They don't come off as dragon people, and so, there's covert, they're like ice dragon people, I guess. I talked about this in Blood of the Other. You have all this fiery symbolism at Winterfell, but it's like hiding inside of the ice. So like you've got the hot springs inside of the castle, making it warm. You've got the Bran's vision of the dragon flying over Winterfell when Ramsay Bolton burned it. It's not a real dragon, but through Summer's eyes, kind of looks like a dragon. And that's, of course, symbolism to talk about Jon Snow as a kind of sleeping dragon in Winterfell. So this is all the dragon locked in ice metaphor. Like over and over, we see the fiery thing get sort of surrounded by ice and frozen, just like Jon's dead body inside the wall, just like the hidden Targaryen secret inside the crypts of Winterfell. And so that is essentially what I saw with the Starks, is that their symbolism is that of frozen dragons, ice dragons, dragon fire that's been flipped to ice. So how we do? Are we doing good? Somebody's saying they got a freeze here. I think it's good. Okay, cool. Aiden says the Blood of the Other series was fantastic. Thank you. So Smitty, yeah, I mean, that makes sense as far as Aegon being real. People think he's fake and he dies an ironic or tragic death. That would be a good story. The main thing that cuts against that would be Dany's vision in the House of the Undying, where she's called Slayer of Lies. And immediately after, they talk about the Mummer's dragon on poles and cheering crowds. So it seems like that's a lie that Dany is supposed to slay. I don't know how else to interpret that. So Aegon is fake. Sorry, I don't know how to change names. 2 super chats, I'm being told. Okay, there's one. Matthew Davis says, I don't think Aegon will turn out to be fake. Why does it seem that Jon Connington is convinced of him being Rhaegar's son? Because Jon Connington is a tool. That's why. He's been a tool his whole life. Varys made him a tool, turned him into an alcoholic and whatever, just to provide a cover story. So no, he doesn't know what's going on. And it makes sense to lie to Jon Connington, because him believing that he's raising Rhaegar's son, who he's clearly in love with, is the reason why Varys can trust Jon Connington to throw everything he has into protecting Aegon. So it's a perfect lie. It makes tons of sense. And again, the main reason most people think Aegon is fake, there's 2 reasons. One is the Slayer of Lies vision. And then 2, we kind of need a Blackfire rebellion. There's been a Blackfire rebellion in every period of Targaryen history. There's tons of foreshadowing about the Blackfires, and Aegon being a Blackfire, it makes too much sense. So that is why people think that. Henbot says, Stannis goes beyond the wall but loses to the others, yes or no? No, I don't think he's going to go beyond the wall. I think his story will probably, well, actually, no, I take that back. I take it back. Shireen's burning will happen at the wall, and Stannis has to get back there to understand what has happened, what his getting in bed with Relorism has wrought. There's no question. Stannis cannot die without grasping that truth. So he will end up back at the wall, and perhaps going into exile or something, or just going out to fight the others could be a self-imposed penance or something that people impose on him. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Some people have said that Stannis could end up being the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch when this is all done. I actually like that theory. Stannis has a ton of Night's King symbolism anyway. He's already trying to live at the Night Fort. So yes, it does make sense. And there's another one. Kraken Taco says, how bad will it get with Bran's powers and him taking Hodor and his crush on Mira? Oh boy, where's George going to take us? I hope not much farther with that. I think that the purpose of that is that Bran's desire for Mira causes him to skin change Hodor more. Because again, hard in conflict, what people want, their desires control their actions. And so I think that it's not that we're going to get freaky Hodor Mira Bran sex. I definitely hope we don't get that or anything close to that. But I do think that Bran trying to, I mean, we saw it like Mira, we saw Mira crying over sadness of her brother, and Bran wants to hug her. It's very sweet, really. He wants to take her in her arms and comfort her. And he's like, well, maybe if I could do it if I was Hodor, but then she leaves the room and he can't do it. So, I mean, Bran is 7. Let's not forget, he doesn't have sex drive yet. So this is like a childhood crush. It's a companionship crush. It's a bit of a motherhood thing. You know, she's a mother figure to him. I mean, he's been abandoned. He doesn't have any parents. He's, you know what I mean? Like when a 7 or 8-year-old child is in that kind of situation, they're going to bond with whoever is protecting them and keeping them safe. And so with Mira, it's kind of a mixture of that childhood crush and a mother figure and all that. So I don't think that it's going to go to some weird, freaky place. I think the point is that it's going to cause Bran, that's Bran's heart in conflict, is that he wishes he had legs. He wants to be a real boy. He wants to be a knight, and he can't, you know? So him taking Hodor is him chafing against that fate that is his. So, okay, maybe he's 11. I guess if he's 11, that's a little bit, that's still a pretty kid crush, you know? It's like you want to maybe kiss the girl, but you don't really know what to do. So Bran also doesn't seem to be much of a deviant, but who knows? Maybe he'll start watching that WeirdNet porn and become a deviant. I guess that's possible. That seems like something more fun to talk about in the chat. Hopefully we won't get that on the page. So yeah, so Bran is probably about 11 years old. All right. Bran. All right, chat. Keep it above the belt. What do you think of the theory that Dany is the Mummer's dragon while she settles down and tries to comprise the rule in Essos? And remember who you are is to break that facade. I think that theory is wrong and bad. No, not bad, but I do think it's wrong. Dany is not the Mummer's dragon. Dany is the true dragon. She's as dragon as anybody is. She is the epitome of the dragon. So no, the Mummer's dragon is definitely Fagon. And I don't think that so CJ, I'm not sure if you've watched any of my Dany videos, but I have the whole who is the real Daenerys Targaryen playlist, which I recommend. And if you watch those, you'll see that what appears to be a tension between her dragon nature, fire and blood, and her Mysa mother nature is actually not a conflict at all, because she only ever uses her dragon power to protect her people, which is exactly what mother figures and mother goddesses do. Mother goddesses are always wrathful. Like it's like the mama bear. You don't mess with mama bear, right? You don't mess with her cubs. What are you going to get? You're going to get the claw. So that's where we see Dany's dragon power being used, is as a protective mother figure and a vengeful mother figure at times. And so I think what's happening is that Dany's challenge is to reconcile using the dragon power, being the dragon, and also protecting and being the Misa. And guys, there's a train about to come through. It's going to be really loud, so just...
Time for train shenanigans.
It says choo-choo, and there's a picture of a train on it. I choo-choo choose you. All right. Quinn sighting. Yeah, they like the Quinn sightings. Yeah, dude, the train is real. The train is real. It's not passenger trains. They're the long cargo train. Okay, I'm just gonna play bass over the train. There. There they come. See, it's like 5 minutes long, man. It's still training. They come in the middle of the night too, once in a while, just like one. So maybe I'll hang on a second, guys. Let me just take this opportunity to. And we're back. Whoa, dude. I just blew out a bunch of smoke and it totally freaked out the green screen thing. This is wild. I have to show you. Of course, that was totally legal smoke. There's YouTube overlords. There's nothing illegal that just happened at all. I'm in the state of California. Give me a hard time. All right. Anyways. All right. Where were we? Well, no, I don't live here. This is just an Airbnb, guys. So I don't live next to the train permanent. No, I would not sign up for that. No, this is just an Airbnb. So we've got to deal with the train for like 2 weeks. It's cool. But the Airbnb is great. We're like on a kind of a ranchy type of place, you know? Anyways, you don't care about that. So Dawnbringers, guys, I want to talk about something now that you guys have gotten some of the, oh, there's a super chat I missed. Thank you. Elisa, you rock, by the way. Thank you so much. It is, guys, it is a little bit stressful to try to get my attention and keep me from missing the chat. So I really do appreciate it, mods. Thank you. You guys are making this thing better. So thanks a lot. From Ray Riddle, thank you, Ray. I really hope Bran keeps his agency. I don't want him to turn into a robot. Ah, yes. Great comment. Me too. And I don't think it will. I think that even on the show, it was very inconsistent from episode to episode how much of a robot Bran was. Because like one episode is like, oh, I can't be the lord of anything. And Mira's leaving and he's like, bye. Like with no emotion, no thank you. Or what did he just said dryly? He said thank you. And that was it. It's just like, thank you. Thank you. Motherfucker. But yeah, so, but then later he has more personality and he's kind of human with some of the Starks. And then he decides to be king and he's talking about stories and shit. So, I mean, I don't know. No consistency. It's not consistent. And I don't think that makes sense when you talk about George's emphasis on the heart in conflict. And then we're just going to get a robot king that doesn't have any conflict. That doesn't make sense at all. So no, I think Bran will be human and he'll be trying to live with the entire weirwood net inside his brain. And that might be like kind of freaky, actually. So Isco, I missed your super chat. I'm scrolling back up to get it. Hype train. Somebody was calling it the hype train. Okay. So, can you repeat? So can you repeat that one? I don't have it. I can't scroll up to see it. So yes. Super chat sticker from Rody James. Thank you, Rody James. Let's see. And Amanda's new video. No, I saw Crowfood's daughter put one out yesterday about the King's Blood. I have not watched it. I'm looking forward to watching it. So definitely check that out. That's on the Disputed Lands. That's the same person that did those awesome videos about the that I based the Dracomorph on. You know, the secrets of the blood of the dragon. Let's see here. So thank you, Rhodey James, and then thank you, Carol Funk. Super sticker. So these sticker things are new, and I need to. YouTube also does a subscriber thing where I can. I'm gonna check that out. But Quinn has been doing it, and he said it's been working. It's kind of like a Patreon thing, but it's a little easier, more streamlined, and it's YouTube centric, and it allows you to have fun avatars and some other stuff here in the chat, which is kind of fun. So I'll check that out. And Iso, I'm looking for your question, so post it and I'll get it. And yeah, so there's the Disputed Lands link in the chat. Only a few videos on there. They are all awesome, though. And if you like any of my stuff, you'll definitely like what she's doing. Yeah, I can see Bran dealing with depression and madness. Yeah, absolutely. Would you want to have a hive mind that's thousands of years old living inside your head? That might be weird, right? I can see some issues there. I don't know how much time we'll have to explore that. It depends on when the download happens. In the books, we see the download happen in two parts. It happens first in Bloodraven's cave, and then they flee. And the second part of the download happens when they're sort of closer to the wall, and he puts his hand on that tree and sees the rest of the RLJ scene. I think it would make sense that a download event would happen pretty soon. So then we'd have the whole last book for Bran to deal with that, actually. And that kind of makes sense. And yeah, I'm on Instagram. Thanks, Elisa. Totally. Lucifer means Lightbringer. It's very easy to find. Predictable, even. And there's like, you know, that's more personal stuff. I got like my celebration of Adidas and, you know, things like that. Some of the clothes I like to wear and random other BS. So if you want to see some behind the scenes stuff, then follow me on Instagram. But that won't be like where I announce, you know, when the next live stream is. That's always going to be on Twitter and Facebook. So Lucifer means TikTok. No, I think I'm too old, guys. I think I'm too old to get on TikTok. Yeah, that would be weird. I don't have an OnlyFans. Shh. We're going to talk about that. Okay, so here's the question. The hero twins are a North American myth archetype. You can find it from the Maya to the Navajo to the Iroquois and more. And of course, yeah, it exists in my tribe stories too. So I probably should do, I have seen enough references to that that I need to probably follow up on that and see what all is there. That's how my research works. I find one clue that points me towards something. Like, for example, I noticed Tyrion kept getting called a monkey demon like 4 times. I'm like, monkey demon? That sounds awfully specific. Monkey demon mythology. And then I got Sun Wukong. And then I read Sun Wukong's story, and that's when I saw all the parallels. So the hero twins, I found them because of the Jaguar Night Sun deity thing. When I got into the line of night and the dark sun concept, it quickly led me to a certain Mayan deity that is the embodiment of the idea of a dark sun. And it has to do with the idea of the sun going in the underworld and all that stuff. And of course, all the obsidian, the idea of glass candles that's just obsidian scrying mirrors, which is a classic South American shamanic thing. They would use obsidian mirrors as dark mirrors to gaze into, and, you know, I mean, however much you believe in magic or whatever, I mean, that's what they did with those things. And so the glass candle is just a different shape, obsidian scrying mirror, essentially. So George lives in the American Southwest, and obviously just researches mythology in general. So it would seem that George is up on certain South American myths. And also, if you want to hit me up on Twitter at the Dragon LML and start a conversation and share some of your tribe's mythology and your knowledge of the general North American mythology and expand on this, we would all be grateful. So hit me up and we'll do it. Hey, Alicia. Hi and bye. I missed you coming in earlier, so that's why I say hi and bye. Thank you. And yeah, 90% of the people on TikTok are too old for TikTok. Yeah, I'm not going to be another one either. Do you think there is a reason Bran has never skin changed Hodor, has skin changed Hodor, but never actually tried to talk as Hodor? Okay. Do you think it's possible for him to do so? Well, I don't know. I think that he tried to talk and it just came out as Hodor in one of those scenes, if I recall correctly. So probably not. Probably not. I don't think he would be able to talk as Hodor, but he definitely can kick some ass as Hodor. And in fact, when they are almost to Bloodraven's cave, there's a real cool scene where Hodor gets some awesome symbolism. First of all, he's holding one of the black and red swords from the Winterfell crypts, which is a Valyrian steel Lightbringer symbol. They're black for being iron, but then they get rusty, so they become red. So Hodor has a black and red sword, and he's swinging it at trees, knocking the ice off the trees. So you've got the whole sword stabbing the tree symbol, which we've seen a whole bunch of times. And then his eyes get frozen over. His tears freeze in his eyes, or one of them. So he gets a one eye symbol, and he gets an ice eyes symbol. Shout out to Jon Ice Eyes. And so to me, if Bran takes Hodor's body for a very important fight, that would make sense as a fulfillment of that foreshadowing. I would, like, for example, Dark Sister is almost certainly sitting in Bloodraven's cave somewhere. Mira could definitely use it, but I could also see Hodor wielding it with Bran controlling him. And then we'd get a very cool Ice and Fire, Last Hero, one-eyed sorcerer with a Valyrian sword type of thing, who's also showing us a combined being that's half child and half giant, because Hodor is a giant and Bran's a child. So it's some pretty awesome symbolism rolled together there with Hodor. Maybe I should do a Hodor video. That would be like some hot fire clickbait, wouldn't it? Hodor video. Anyways. Exactly. Yeah. George specified that Bloodraven took Dark Sister with him to the wall. So we just don't know if he took it to the cave, I think, is where that is. But likely he did. What's the point of George saying he took it to the wall if he didn't take it to the cave? Because Bloodraven went out ranging and then disappeared. So he would have had Dark Sister with him ranging. So I think we can basically assume that it's in the cave. Absolutely. Yeah, cell phones are dark mirrors. That is very true. Yes. Yeah, Alt-Shift-X. I'm sure he has done a Hodor video. He's done videos on everything, and I love Alt-Shift-X. But yeah, obviously I'd be doing like a symbolism Hodor video, so it'd be a little different. Yeah, and you're right. If Dark Sister was at the wall, we would know. So it's got to be in the cave. It could also mean that Cold Hands is a Raven's Tooth with Dark Sister. Yep, waiting for the prince that was promised. Yeah, that makes sense. And if Cold Hands isn't thousands of years old, I think the youngest he could be is that he came up to the wall with Bloodraven. That would make him 50 to 80 years old, I think, or something like that. I think it's 80. I'm not sure. The Children of the Forest said about Cold Hands that, oh, they killed him long ago. So to me, 80 years is even a stretch to call that long ago. I think it needs to be older, but that's the minimum. So if he's a Raven's Tooth, then yeah, he could have. The thing is that we see Cold Hands pull out a sword when they're trying to get into Bloodraven's cave, and they do not describe it as Valyrian steel or anything like that, or being a black sword or anything. So, but Cold Hands could have it, I guess, or could wield it at some point. But I think it makes more sense to put it in the hands of Mira or, Hodor Bran. And yes, Hodor is kind of like a walking weirwood tree. Absolutely. And there's a lot of people that have walking weirwood tree symbolism. Jaqen H'ghar has terrific walking weirwood tree symbolism. He steps out from behind a weirwood. He's got red and white hair. He puts his hand in the weirwood. And then him and Arya go play weirwood assassin together running around Harrenhal. So there's a lot of weirwood warriors. That's what Bloodraven is. He looks like a weirwood tree. Ghost looks like a weirwood tree. When Jon's resurrected, if he gets white hair and red eyes, like I think he will, he'll look like a weirwood tree, and he'll also look like Elric of Melniboné. And by the way, guys, Elric. I had a good Elric section in this video, which I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope that has whet your tastes, whet your appetite for Elric of Melniboné, because I have started to delve into it, and it is awesome. It is some cool shit. I'm thinking about doing a live stream, or probably a live stream would be one of those ones where I have an outline and it's kind of structured, just to talk more about Elric, and just so I can read some of the Elric quotes. They're so fucking epic, dude. When he pulls out Stormbringer, the thing starts singing, it starts drinking the souls of his enemies, and Elric kind of hates it, but then Stormbringer funnels the energy of the souls that's collecting into Elric, and so he becomes stronger, and the more people he kills, the more fierce he becomes, and it's just like horrific. And sometimes he like snaps out of the battle lust and like he's killed some of his friends and shit. Like it's twisted. It's twisted. And I think I've cussed too much now on this live stream, and it's only going to be limited monetization. Oh well. Sometimes I got to cuss. But Elric is awesome. You guys got to check it out. Unfortunately, there's not. I think you should read them in order. People asking what book to start with. Most people say read the first one first, which is just called Elric of Melniboné. It might be Legend of the Black Sword, I think. But yeah, I think you want to read the first couple in order, and after that, it's less important because there's some time shifty stuff going on. There's only one that you can find easily on audiobook, and it's on YouTube as an audiobook, and it's called Sailing the Seas of Fate. And that one is really trippy. It's supposedly the most trippy, like, Elric book. And Moorcock said he was eating a lot of mushrooms and shit when he wrote that one. So it's really wild. But any of it, I think, gives you the feel, like when you're reading an old series like Elric, that the story is already completed, and as soon as you go to the Wikipedia page, you're going to get some of the finished details of the story. It's less important about, getting the story in order as opposed to just sort of absorbing the feel of the scenes, because especially for A Song of Ice and Fire, that's what Martin is reproducing, like the feel of some of this stuff. So yeah, Elric is the real deal. Like, don't waste your time going back to read like Wheel of Time or Sword of Shannara. And those are great series, and I've read them, and they're foundational. But at this point, like if you've read A Song of Ice and Fire, that stuff's going to be a little basic. No offense. I mean, I don't mean it as a slight if you like Wheel of Time. I like Wheel of Time for what it is, but it's not at the level of A Song of Ice and Fire. And I don't know how much there is to be learned from reading Wheel of Time if you've already read A Song of Ice and Fire. But Elric, you need to read Elric. Like, this is a taste of a completely different time. You'll notice it has a little bit of a similar feel to Lovecraft at times, or the old Conan stuff that George is influenced by. So I think that you'll get more out of going back further and reading some of that stuff. And obviously, if you haven't read Tolkien, you need to read Tolkien. I mean, that's one where you can't just go on the movies. You need to actually read the poetry of Tolkien to really get it. So, okay, so here's something I want to talk about that nobody's asked a question about it. I was hoping I would get a question about it, but I haven't. And so I will just talk about it myself. I think there were two Lightbringer swords, guys. This used to be my jam on Westeros.org. I would get into very long discussions about this. So check this out. We've got Dawn, right? It's a white sword made from a pale stone, supposedly. Everything is pale and white about it. The people who wield it wear white. Everything is white and purple, white sword, whatever. But we've got all this black sword stuff going on. The Valyrian steel swords are all black. The Valyrian steel swords are made with blood magic, and they seem to be very much an imitation of the Lightbringer recipe. Swords forged in blood magic, forged in the sacred fires, which is probably dragon fire. And so when you go back and look at the Bloodstone Emperor, who may have been Azor Ahai, or at the very least was the villain in the Long Night story, he worshipped a black stone meteor. And we've got all this black oily stone that might be meteor burnt stone or something like that laying around. And, we know George is fascinated with Lovecraft's Shining Trapezohedron. There's many important black swords in fantasy. Elric's Stormbringer is obviously the most important one. Lightbringer, Stormbringer. Nissa Nissa's soul was absorbed into Lightbringer, just like Stormbringer drinks the souls of everyone that it slays. But there's other black swords in fantasy too. There is Anglicel and Anguirel from Lord of the Rings, which are both made from meteorites. The same meteorite was made into two black swords, and one of them was renamed Gurthang and has a very Azor Ahai Nissa Nissa story attached to it. I think that's, is it Baron and Luthien, I believe, with Gurthang? my Silmarillion knowledge is a little fuzzy sometimes, but point is, the reason why Martin has these cool black Valyrian steel swords is because black fantasy swords are a thing. They are absolutely a thing. And so what I think is that to have a good sword fight, you need 2 swords, right? And so this is what we've got. We've got a white sword and a black sword, I think. Right now we have 1 white sword and many black swords, right? But I think that so Gurthang was Turin, right? And which was the one no, Narsil was not a black sword. Narsil was not. That was a silvery shining elf sword. And there's another sword that is an ice sword. That one is it glitters with ice and it's used to wound Morgoth's foot. What's the name of that one? And I apologize for getting this all mixed up. Please don't grill me. I don't claim to be a Tolkien aficionado. I read the Silmarillion when I was like 15, and then Blue Tiger has like schooled me up on some of this stuff. So Turin had Gurthang, which is the one that Eol the elf made from the meteor. Right. Okay. So Baron and Luthien was the mistake. That's a different story. Different sad story. So the ice sword was Thingol's sword. Yes. And what was that called? It's got a cool name. Is it with a G? But if you read that, it's really cool. So we have this ice warrior, the elf, gosh, what was his name? Turin. No, not Turin. Thingol. Yeah. So Thingol, all of his armor is blue and silver, and it glitters like ice and diamonds. It sounds exactly like all of George's symbolic language for Dawn and the others. Oh, Ringhill. That's it. Ringhill. Yeah. Ringhill or Ringhill. I'm not sure which you say it is, but yeah, it's basically Dawn if you look at it. And it is so strongly associated with ice. It is not even funny. And it's being used against, okay. So Ringhill was Fingolfin's sword. Someone is saying we've got now the lore being used, but the important thing is it was used to wound Morgoth, and Morgoth is the predecessor of Sauron. So he is black and red, dragons, fire, demonic, all of that symbolism that has been adapted to the Targaryens and the Valyrians. And so you have this heroic elf with an ice sword fighting the Dark Lord, the Dark Dragon Lord or whatever. So, so yeah, it is Fingolfin, not Thingol. So there you go. So Fingolfin with Ringhill, that's the one that you want to look at for, again, the Dawn legend. And so, again, if you look back in Tolkien, you see the white ice sword mythology and you see the black meteor sword mythology. And it just makes way too much sense to me if essentially what we have is Dawn as the original technology. Okay. I hate to be so basic as like, well, the black swords are all stained with blood magic, so they're evil, and the white sword is not evil and it's pure. Because obviously George is inverting that all over the place. The Night's Watch have honor, and the Kingsguard are horrible, rotten, evil scoundrels, and their white armor is a complete farce. And, Jaime and Brienne and Sandor are constantly putting their finger on that. But, however, be that as it may, I think there is a reason to believe that Dawn could be the original magic sword technology. Hopefully, maybe it doesn't require blood sacrifice. I would like it if there's a way to make a magic sword without killing people, personally. I like magic swords. They appeal to me. It would suck if you have to kill someone every time, So maybe you see the Great Empire of the Dawn Emperors. They're holding swords of pale fire. Presumably they came before the Bloodstone Emperor. And so maybe the Bloodstone Emperor corrupted everything, corrupted the technology. That seems to be his MO. And so now we have these black swords. He forged Lightbringer with blood magic. So what I'm saying is that I really think originally we had a black sword that was Lightbringer, and we had Dawn that was also Lightbringer. And that Lightbringer is basically those 2 swords. I don't know if they originally one sword that were split, if they're just linked. And again, from the Great Empire of the Dawn video, you saw there was Stormbringer, and then there was the Mournblade that were once part of the same sword that was split in half. If you think about Ned's Ice, which is a very strong Lightbringer and Comet analog, what happens to it? It gets also split in half into 2 swords, which have their own important symbolism that strongly resembles Lightbringer. What does Dawn do? Dawn breaks, right? When the sun rises, we say that Dawn breaks. The last hero's sword breaks. If you look at Narsil, it broke. And then it was used by Elendil's son. Help me out, someone. The broken sword was used to cut the One Ring from Sauron, is the point. So there is so much broken, reforged sword symbolism running around, both in the fantasy that Martin is drawing from and in A Song of Ice and Fire proper. So there is a lot of possibilities here. But Isildur, thank you. But the point is that I think we need two swords. And so what I'm hoping is that there is some sort of original black steel Lightbringer that's going to surface. Maybe it's Blackfire, you know, maybe it's something we haven't seen, or maybe it's not that. Maybe it's just the idea of the Black Valyrian sword. And at some point we'll see somebody with Dawn fighting somebody with Blackfire, or, you know, Widow's Wail or Oathkeeper or Longclaw or something. And we'll get that very cool black and white sword battle. But yeah, I think that that's what we got here. So 2 magic swords, black and white. Ah, yes, Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. Yes, so Aiden Tig is asking a great question here. Do you think the blades Sorrow, Memory, and Thorn have parallels here? So in Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, that's the name of the series. It's also 3 swords, Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. At least one of them is a meteor sword, I know. I did a live stream a couple years ago. I think it was a Between Two Weirwoods one. And it was with History of Westeros and Bookshelf Stud and Gray Area. And Gray Area is like really up on the MS&T stuff. And if you go over to Gray Area's channel, she actually has several videos about the correlations between Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn and A Song of Ice and Fire. So that is the first place that I will point to you, Aiden, and also everyone else, because I think it's really interesting. Basically, I saw Gray Area's video about it, and I was so like mind blown GIF emoji meme that I basically dialed her up and was like, dude, can I talk to you about some of this on my channel? Because not only does Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn have correlations to like the surface story of A Song of Ice and Fire, it also has correlations to a lot of my mythical astronomy ideas. And it kind of added evidence to some of them. And so if you go on after you're done with Gray Area's videos, look back down in my catalog and you'll find the Between Two Weirwoods about Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. And we spent 2 hours going over that stuff. So there's meteor sword action. There's Long Night, comet implications. It's great. George has said that he's a big fan. So there's no doubt that it's a strong, strong influence. And yes, I'm seeing all the Gray Area love in the chat. Gray Area is awesome. I love Gray. And she's been doing some great stuff lately too. And for anyone who's into Tiger King, she has Tiger King videos. I'll just say that. I don't watch it, but I know some of y'all like that stuff. So, oh, and there's a Hearn the Hunter figure. That's cool. Which you guys know I love that. Oh, and it seems like there are so you're comparing 3 one-handed. So are Maedhros and Josua, is that from Memory and Sorrow? Those names are tickling my brain, but I don't know off the top of my head if those are MS&T people or someone else. But yeah, they're probably all drawing from Tyr, the Greek god Tyr, with the one-handed stuff. I believe that is the first one. Oh, we're 9 likes away from 300. Folks, if you're watching the stream and you haven't clicked like, please do, because it helps me quite a bit. The more likes, the more people see the video. And you guys in the stream have a much higher like ratio than the people watching the one. Oh, Norse god. I'm sorry. I said Greek god. That was just a verbal faux pas. I know that Tyr is a Norse god. Thank you. Oh, Maedhros is the first son of Fëanor. Okay. Ah, that's right. Yes. There you go. Tyr is also a Black Sabbath album. All right, cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks for clicking the like. And Josua is from Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. Okay, cool. So yeah, so you're saying there's some right. I mean, what good fantasy author hasn't drawn from Tolkien, you know? So that's kind of the cool thing that I like to talk about with George Martin. It's not that George had this idea that like, oh, I should incorporate all of my influences into my book. Like, this is just part of the tradition here. You know, all of the great authors are always citing the people who came first. You know, any musician will tell you that the 4 or 5 musicians that they're sort of aping or trying to follow in the footsteps of. And that's just the tradition, man. Like, you as a creative person, you don't ever exist in a void, you know. I don't even think about creation as really creation. To me, when you're like writing music or you're writing a story, it's more like finding these ideas, right? You're reaching around in the dark. You find a little bit of music. Oh, this note goes with that note. What is that? That's to me what the process of art is like. I don't want to go like all Akashic record on you guys or anything, but I mean, you're supposed, like, this is a tradition. There's no new idea under the sun. What we should be doing is reading the classic stories, absorbing the most important parts of it, and incorporating those things into our own stories. That's how we keep these ideas relevant. And that's why I like to talk about George writing modern mythology, is because the style of writing with the symbolic layers to everything is very like mythology. And the way that he's incorporating these universal archetypes into the story is very like mythology. So we are preserving some of the most important lessons of human existence, and some of them definitely the oldest lessons, by citing the people who came before us. And Tolkien's entire world is drawn from Norse mythology with smatterings of other things. So yeah. All right, Elisa, you got to go. Thank you so much for all your modding. You were awesome today. Hope I gave you some help with the other new mods that we have. And yeah, so it's just another way to talk about it is Jung's collective unconsciousness, of course, similar to the idea of the Akashic records. So I don't worry about figuring out how true that stuff is literally, because I don't think that kind of stuff is meant to be understood that way in the Joseph Campbell sense of truth. Yeah, I should probably just close down the stream now that Alyssa's gone. It's going to be chaos. No, that'll be fine. We are at 2:20 though. So, oh my goodness, has it been over 2 hours already? It has. All right, I guess I can go ahead and wrap it up then. That was probably a good place to close it anyway. It's hard to stop though. It's 450 people watching. You guys are lovely. You're having fun. Nobody's really doing anything. It's quarantine Sunday here. But yeah, I do want to go and work on my my Jojen paste video. So, and C.S. Lewis, yeah, okay. So C.S. Lewis, there are a ton of correlations with the Narnia stuff. I mean, just check out that the world between worlds, right? With all the little pools that are like portals and stuff. I mean, that's the Weirwood Net idea, just in a different form. And yeah, I should do a reread of and when I say I should, basically, like, I'm creating a list of future projects to do, definitely should do some Narnia, Song of Ice and Fire parallel videos. I don't know that anyone's done that I know of. So yeah, that could be a cool project. I will give you guys a couple more minutes to launch any last questions if you want. But yeah, thanks for all the great questions so far. We've had nice hard-hitting topical stream. I didn't have to prepare an outline for, so you guys are awesome. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, no, Narnia. So the way to think about Narnia is more like a fairy tale. It's like reading Alice in Wonderland or something. It's not fantasy in the same sense that like a Song of Ice and Fire is. It's really more like a fable, and I think it shines that way. So that's just, yeah, that's how it is. That's how I see it. All right. Well, guys, yeah, thank you very much. No, I haven't been on Westeros.org in a long time. Because of my ADD thing, I can only focus on just a few things at a time, and I hyper focus on them. And for me, just having like 2 social media accounts and a Patreon is a lot to keep track of. So if I have too many places that I'm supposed to post and keep up with responses, it's really hard for me. Twitter seems to be working the best, honestly, for real time. If you want to get a hold of me and ask me a question on a random day, like leave me a Twitter comment or leave a question on a YouTube video. That's usually the best way. But I try to keep it contained so that I don't have to try to monitor too many things. That really stresses me out to do that. So yeah, well, Conan was a huge influence. I mean, George has talked about that. I don't know much about Conan, so. Oh, there's a good question to close with. Is there any crossover between all the Bran and the Builder works and the Great Empire of the Dawn technology? Probably. Let's look at the things that Bran was credited with, right? So the High Tower, all right, that's on top of the Fuse Stone. Storm's End, which is very mysterious. It has spells set into it, just like the Wall, which, oh, by the way, also built by Bran and the Builder. And then also Winterfell, which sits on top of the crypts. So these are all important potential long night, dawn age, places. And I think that if you're looking at a source for analogous technology, just like we say, well, who could have forged dawn in the Dawn Age? Well, the Great Empire of the Dawn. So who could have built advanced structures when the first men were just doing like very simple ring forts? Yes, the Great Empire of the Dawn. Oh, the other one is Pike. So check this out. Let's talk about round towers. It's several times in the World of Ice and Fire, the maesters get up on their high horse about round towers and square towers. And they're saying that round towers are, they're harder to make than square towers. And that's definitely true. And so they're saying that we didn't find round towers in Westeros until the Andals came. The first men made ring forts and kind of primitive castle type things. And then Andals showed up. They had more technology. They had steel. They had the round towers. Well, except that one of the oldest structures in Westeros is Castle Pike on the Iron Islands, which was built before the Iron Islands started collapsing, which is probably before the Long Night. And Pike was found there by the Ironborn, just like the Seastone Chair when they got there. So Pike is like Moat Cailin old, and it has round towers. So I think that when we're talking about also the first keep of Winterfell, which is very old, although that one's less clear because it's been rebuilt several times, so that could be an Andal thing. But I think that there are also Blackwood Keep has a round tower, I think. And so I think there are, well, basically George is giving us hints that the dogmatic view of the Maesters isn't quite right. We should look at the the oldest first men structures and be like, wait a minute, that's too much technology for the first men. And that's what gives us a clue that the Great Empire of the Dawn, left some of their technology laying about, left some of their knowledge laying about. I mean, it makes sense. That's what would happen. So yes, I do think that is the answer. I don't know what's the deal with Storm's End. Like, it's people want us to wonder if it's fused stone. It's not, though. It's weird. It's like the stones are so tightly fit together that you can't even put a knife in between them. And that's the language that is often used for like Sachehuman and other megalithic sites in South America, where you see those asymmetrical stones with many angles, and they're all fit together into this big wall or whatever. They're so cunningly fit together that you can't get a knife in there. So I think George is giving a shout out to that sort of building style, but it's not fused stone, except that there's that weird story about when Kat's going over how Storm's End was created. She's like, yeah, there's lots of legends about it. One of the legends is that the children of the forest turned the stone to liquid and fashioned it with magic. And turning stone to liquid is what the Dragon Lords do with fused stone. So it's very jumbled up. It's like we don't see fused stone, and children of the forest don't make fused stone that we know of. But turning stone to liquid sounds like fused stone, and fused stone is Great Empire of the Dawn technology, and Storm's End is ways too advanced. So I'm not sure what the deal is. It's probably not a spaceship, though. Cyclopean or megalithic, yeah, is that kind of construction. Yeah, polygonal masonry. And so, yeah, I don't know what the ultimate deal is. The most important thing about Storm's End is that spells are set into the walls, which tells you that the oldest structures of the first men were warded with spells. And I think that's the important thing to think about. So, all right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and call it. Thank you so much. I had a great time. That second hour slipped by like nothing. And yeah, you guys were great. Gave me lots of super chats. I really appreciate that. It helps me keep the channel going. And like I said, I think the next thing I'm going to hit you with might be the Jojen Paste video, but look for all kinds of stuff coming from me in the future. And there you go. So thank you, everyone. Thank you very much to all the mods. Green Bart, I see you dropped in. Thank you. And I'll see you again soon. Happy quarantine. Stay safe.